in the book of Revelation, in the opening chapters, Jesus Christ gives these messages to the churches, to these 7 churches of Asia. But they're meant to be for all the church for all time. But there are these messages given in chapter 2, verse 17. We see a little piece of the message from Jesus to the church of Pergamum, and it's neat. I really like this little piece. I've always kind of liked. I find the imagery of it so neat. And he says a few things to the church, and then in verse 17 he says, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, to him I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone, and a new name written on the stone, which no one knows but he who receives it." And I just always love that image, because this time is going to come in our future where God Himself gives us this white stone with a name on it, and He knows because He wrote it on there. But He knows, and the only other person who knows is the one who receives the stone, myself or yourself. It's just such a neat thought, because like in the ancient world, a name was very, very important, because the name wasn't just simply a label you slapped on something, but it was an identity. Your name was representative of not just who, but what you are. And so quite often they would give names to people that were descriptive in some way of who they were in life, or what they did, or something about their character or whatever. And so names were not merely a handle. They were also a way of explaining the person to some degree. And so it's just such a neat thought that at the end of time, that when we all come before the Lord at that last time, He's gonna give us a stone and this name that He will say, "Here's who you are." And it's just such a neat thing. In our world, our world, especially right now in this point in history, it is making such a mess of the idea of identity, trying to figure out who you are in this day. It's always been a trial. Throughout the history of humanity, people go through their life trying to figure out who they are, trying to figure out, what do I stand for? What am I about? Who am I? And the quest for your self-identity, is something that's timeless. I mean, humans everywhere have always done this, and so that's not a new thing. But in our day and age, this has been then taken up to such a degree, and it's so badly. There is so many ways you're being told you need to identify yourself, that the name you need to slap on yourself needs to be attached to your gender, or needs to be attached to your skin color, or needs to be attached to your desires, or to your history, or to where you live, or to whatever. I mean, it's incredible in our current day how many different ways people are trying to slap labels on you and tell you who you're supposed to be because of that label. And if you're this person and you have these labels all slapped all over you, well, then you're supposed to live this way, think this way, breathe this way, vote this way, talk this way. And it's like our whole world has gone crazy trying to tell you who you are. It's like they're trying to hand you a stone, and they're trying to put a name on it, and they're trying to tell everybody else to look at this name, and we're all going to decide who you are for you. That's the world we're in right now, and it's a mess. People are so confused by this, and people are adopting those labels, and they're thinking, well, okay, someone slapped on my head that I'm this, and so now I guess I am. That's the power of identity. Your sense of identity affects you so deeply. Because of what you think you are, who you think you are, what you think you are, you will be affected in your own self-assessment. When someone slaps a label on you, you hear that enough, you're going to start to believe it. If someone tells you all your life that you're stupid, and if you hear that all the time, you're stupid, man, you're stupid, and people laugh and make fun of you, and they just keep slapping that label on you, that name on you, that you're stupid, you're going to start to believe that. Even if you don't want to, you're going to start to. There's just something about our psyche that we hear it enough, and you start to think, well, maybe that's true. And then once you start to, inside yourself, you start to believe those labels, then it starts to affect your actions. You will then act in a way that lives up to what people told you you're supposed to be. If the people in your life tell you you're a drunk, you're gonna drink more. And if people in your life tell you that you're a liar, you're gonna be freer about truth. You're not gonna be so good with it. It's just a funny thing, but it affects our actions. We start to live up to the labels people give us. It's amazing, but it's true. You'd think that no, we could resist all that, and we could just be our own people. We could just decide, well, I am what I am, and I'm going to be this. But it really doesn't work that way. We are so desperately trying to fill that gap in our mind and our heart of who am I? And we can't do it. But as people give you the names, as people give you the identities, it affects your desires. Even what you want in life starts to be affected by what you've been called and the names that have been placed on you. Your relationships to other people, they're highly affected by what you think your identity is. You know, if you become a father and people use the word father, you start to act like a father. The more they use that, the less you do. You know, these families that have kids and they let their kids call them by their first name rather than by dad or by father or whatever. It may feel like that might make you feel better because now you don't have the responsibility of fatherhood on you. I don't know. But that's how it works, isn't it? Someone calls you father, you've got to be one. This is how labels work. And it's with everything. It's not just with those examples I've given. It's just right across the spectrum of life. We have labels. We attach identity to ourselves. And it's not entirely wrong. We look at all these things and they do somewhat identify us. They do somewhat make us different from one another. And the identity labels we have are helpful sometimes. But we got to be really careful about this. See, the whole world is trying to slap labels on you. The whole world has a stone for you. Everybody has a stone for you with a name they've put on it that they want you to have, and they want everyone else to see that stone too, and they want you to live up to the label that's on that stone. And so you find yourself carrying more and more of these heavy stones that are given to us by other people, and it makes your life miserable in the end. Even if along the way you start to feel, oh, now I know who I am. It's not really. It doesn't work because that's not who actually should be defining who you are. And by the way, it's not even yourself. We often do that. We find some stone and polish it off and put a name on it, and we decide, I am going to be this. This is who I am. And we decide to give ourselves a name and an identity. And we fashion it out, and we decide what it's going to be. We wear it with pride, and we go into our world thinking that makes us healthy, and it doesn't. It actually makes you unhealthy. You can't either. You can't define yourself either. I know you'd like to, but you can't. It's just not the way we were made. It's just not what the universe is. You're not any better at it than anyone else is. You will mislabel yourself. But we understand the verse I read here today, Revelation 2:17, where God says that in the end, he's going to give us each a stone with a name on it that only you know. But he knows, of course, he wrote it on there. It was him that gives it. It's him that tells you who you are, and then you know it. And you see it and you know it and you hold it and it's me. And no one else gets to write on that stone. No one else gets to tell you who you are. You know who you are. God has shown you who you are. You see it. And when we overcome with this, we understand that's what God's going to do in the end. But even now, even before the end, we get a glimpse of this as we look into the scriptures and we see who God says we are in him. And we understand who God sees us as. That he sees me as a son, he sees me as a servant, he sees me as a person of his own possession, or whatever the case is, as I look in the scriptures and I see who he wants me to be as a man, as a father, as a whatever it is, all the various things I have, that people will slap labels on me. But as I look at all those identities, I can see what God thinks I should be in them, knowing that ultimately, above and beyond all of that, God sees me uniquely as me. He knows who I'm supposed to be, and it's supposed to be something he tells me I am. And as I work that out in this life, I have this great confidence that the day is coming, if I stay true to God and trust him, that I will see him and he will say, you know who you have been? This is who you are.